Welcome to Life is Beautiful. I'm Anthony. Today we are going to be doing another glassware overview. In front of me you might see two rather simplistic glasses. They don't look necessarily too different from each other, however they're actually two different styles of glass underneath the larger umbrella term of German pole glasses. Despite their simplicity, I discovered that there's actually a lot of engineering and thought that went into their design. Rather surprising for being so, simple. But the German pole glasses have certainly earned their right in the sun and their right to have their own video. So today we're going to talk about the Stange for the Kolsch and the Becher for the Altbier. Let's start with the Kolsch Stange glass, which translates into English as the pole glass, because it's long, cylindrical, and thin, like a pole. And by that I mean like the item, not like the nationality. The Stange at first glance doesn't seem designed to enhance the Kolsch at all. Kolsch is a top fermented ale, light in body and color, highly clarified with a moderate carbonation and a sudsy white head. The flavor and aroma is clean and grainy with an abundance of yeast esters and hop character. Kolsch is also often described as having a vinous flavor, wine-like. And you would think that a beer of this character that has these big esters and has a wine-like approach to its sensory characteristics, you would assume it would be in something more stemmed, more convex and concave, to something more akin to a wine glass designed to enhance the features. However, the Stange is perfectly designed to bolster the Kolsch drinking experience. The Stange is designed to reinforce the concept that Kolsch is a everyday, fast drinking, quaffing beer. Kolsch is designed to be your daily drinker. It's something that is quick, simple, nice, easy to wash down. It's not meant to be some super high pinnacle of sophistication and, state-of-the-art brewing, although, it is certainly respectable. It's just more so designed to be like a chug and go, nothing to think too hard about. The small limit of the Stange is actually a feature, not a bug. When you're out in the beer gardens of Cologne and you're going and drinking your beers, especially during the summer where it's much warmer, you don't necessarily have a whole lot of time before your beer warms up. So serving it in a smaller glass actually encourages the drinker to drink it faster. This has multiple benefits. One, as I mentioned, the heating of the glass. There's not reinforced glass. There's not a stem to keep it off. So you got to drink it fast. But secondly, if you drink Kolsch, traditionally, it's in a wooden firkin. Not a whole lot of carbonation can build up inside of the firkin, not a lot of pressure to get a really intense carbonated mouthfeel. So Kolsch has a risk of running flat rather quickly. But if you serve it in a smaller glass, not only does it stay cool throughout your short drinking time frame, but it also stays carbonated, no risk of going flat. You'll notice that the Stange is perfectly designed to fit at your mouth and cover your nose. So. And this helps create a little bit of like a sniper rifle for all the volatiles going into your mouth. Because the glass is so narrow, all the beer builds up rather quickly. All the carbonation, or what little carbonation is in it, rushes up to the top, creates an incredibly firm, dense head at the top. So when you go to drink it, you're just getting shotgunned right in the face by all the big yeast characters, the hoppy notes, all the volatiles are going right into your nostrils. There's no room for escape. The thin walls, as we mentioned earlier, might not help stave off the heat from your hand or from the ambient temperature around you, but it does function in a different way. Because it is such thin glass and because it is such narrow, there's not a lot of depth to it, it really helps showcase the brilliance, the bright colors coming off of the Kolsch. So not only does it enhance the aromatic, not only does it help the drinking experience, but it also helps it make it look better, which is incredibly important for the Kolsch because this was like the North German response to the ever-encroaching Pilsners and Helles lagers from the South. It's so seemingly under-designed, yet somehow over-designed. It's very weird. It's a bit of an enigma, a bit of a oxymoron, a paradox, because this glass is designed to enhance the drinking experience in every way except the way that you would normally expect beer glasses to accentuate beer drinking experiences. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, 6-ounce pour, designed to drink fast, that might actually be a little bit of an inconvenience, especially if you're used to like the American system where you have to like order a beer and then you have to like wait for a waiter or go back up to the bar to get a refill or something like that. Even in Europe, other parts outside of Cologne, you kind of have that same issue. However, along the North Rhine, they have worked out all the kinks in the system to make the Stange work more effectively. And that's because they have a special, well-trained wait staff known as the Kürbis. The Kürbis is like the robot from Scooby-Doo who like zooms around fast all over the place. They're very much like that in the sense that they zip and zoom around beer gardens, slamming Kolsches onto your table faster than you can drink them sometimes. As soon as you start getting near the bottom, they're already coming around dropping another glass down for you. You have to have like a special move just to indicate that you don't want any more. In addition to this, the Kürbis walk around with something known as a Bierkranz or a beer wreath. It's like a specially designed carrying tray where you can fit 20, 30 different Kolsch Stanges on it. So as soon as that firkin pops and they get the beer flowing, they go around zipping and zooming, slapping down Kolsches. It's brilliant. So you never have to worry about drinking it too fast and having to wait for another beer. The system is nearly flawless. So again, even though I don't think it's much to look at, the Stange is like the pinnacle of drinking experiences for this beer style. But its history is rather strange and very complicated. There's not a whole lot of sources out there. In fact, most of the books I looked at that pertain to Kolsch really only mention that it came around and that's what you drink out of, like there's not much of an origin story there. However, with that being said, most sources I did find did say that the Stange was specifically designed for the Kolsch. If I had to guess, I would say that the Kolsch really kind of stemmed out of the Pilsner movement. As Pilsner was like rampaging across Europe, specifically into Germany, into North Germany, people were turning away in droves to paler beers. And with the arrival of pale beers, so did the desire for drinking out of glassware. Most of the history of beer, people drank out of very opaque stone, earthenware, any type of vessel that really didn't showcase the beer because beers weren't very pretty to look at. But when you have a crystal clear lager that is, that the eyes hunger for, you want to show it off. And if you look at many really, really early examples of Pilsner glasses, you can kind of see how they kind of transitioned into the Stange once it reached Cologne. Now, with all that being said, most sources do indicate that the Stange really became the solidified official beer glass of Kölsch around 1986. So rather late in the game. But at that point in time, the Kölsch Brewers Guild of Cologne, they all kind of band together and they kind of set the parameters for how they wanted to operate as a Kölsch brewery, but also like interoperate amongst each other to create like fair competition. They established a whole bunch of different type of policies for each other, swearing to never brew lagers, always going to brew a Kölsch, brew it in a traditional manner. But they also decided that the Stange was going to be their official glass. And I like to think that it's probably because it had been utilized historically, but also because, again, it so perfectly fits the Kölsch beer style, but also Kölsch and Cologne and North Rhine beer drinking culture. Regardless, in the modern era, there is something rather interesting happening with the Stange. As technology continues to advance, as Kölsch is packaged and shipped out all around the world, the need for drinking it so rapidly isn't necessarily as imperative. You can see much taller, full 12-ounce Stange glasses being sold around the world nowadays because it'll fit an entire packaged Kölsch. I'd also say the Stange is living up to its maximum potential in the craft beer era, where craft breweries are making heavier hopped aromatic focused Kolsch style ales, and it especially works in the coffee aged Kolsch trend, where it can funnel all the nuance of the Kolsch and all the aggression of the coffee directly into your nostrils. All right, so moving on to the Altbier Becher glass. The Becher is incredibly similar to the Kolsch, except just modified slightly to better fit the Altbier. And that makes a lot of sense because their histories are actually rather well intertwined, so it only makes sense that their beer glasses would be too. Becher is Becher in German, and it's likely named for its short, stubby appearance, similar to the beakers in a science classroom. Now, with that being said, Becher could also translate to just cup, which isn't as fun. It's a cup. But that does make sense, since in essence, the Becher is mostly just a non-stylized cup. The Becher glass was popularized in Köln's neighboring city of Dusseldorf to serve the city's famed beer style, the Altbier. Hence why it's oftentimes referred to as the Altbier Becher. So getting into the Becher's appearance, as I mentioned, it is shorter and stubbier, but that is, again, by design, perfectly crafted to fit the beer, right? The Becher is noticeably thicker and wider in circumference than the Stange. As mentioned earlier, the Stange is thinner and taller in order to accentuate the light color and more brilliant aspects of the Kolsch. But the Becher is, in the exact opposite, squattier and thicker in order to bolster the darker appearance of the Altbier. If you know about the history of the Altbier, you know that it was kind of like a defensive perimeter keeping out, paler beers as they moved into the city. They kind of banded together all the different brewers. They wanted to keep the traditional brewing method alive, and that was what resulted in the modern day Altbier. So it makes sense that they really want to showcase the darker aspect of it. So it's shorter and it's stubbier because it's also wider. It actually allows you to hold more beer in the typical Becher glass than you will often have in your Stange. The Becher, just like the Stange, it does have many of the same drinking experiences. It's designed to be drank quickly. It's designed to not really overcomplicate the drinking experience because, again, this is a quaffing beer. It fits your nose perfectly. It forms a nice head. It shotguns those volatiles into your mouth and nose. And again, it enhances its sensory perception. The drinking culture is rather similar in Dusseldorf as it is to Cologne. They too have the Kürbis. They too have their Kranz beer wreath. And again, they zip and zoom around the beer gardens, dropping off alt beers as soon as you can finish drinking them. So all around, they are extremely similar. They share a shared purpose, they share a shared design, and are inextricably linked historically as well. In fact, the oldest beer advertisement I could find for alt beer that had a Becher glass in it came from 1986, the same time that the Stange became solidified at the Kölsch convention. It seems like there was a lot of lateral thinking, or maybe idea stealing or sharing, or I don't know. But what I do know is that finding the history behind the Becher glass was incredibly difficult, even harder so than the Stange, because the books on Altbier only briefly mention the Becher's names and its dimensions, where other primary beer sources such as the Oxford Companion to Beer doesn't even include it at all. I can only make the assumption that it was designed and custom tailored to meet the requirements of the Altbier and was unanimously approved by the Dusseldorf Brewers Guild, much in the same way that the Kölsch brewers did at the Kölsch convention for the Stange. Perhaps there was simply a unifying moment of standardization occurring along the North Rhine at that time, but I can't be certain. Regardless, I am just so fascinated by the concept of the Stange and the Becher glass because it reminds me of the way that people think about shaker pints. People talk down on them a whole lot because they don't think they have much to offer. And, I did an entire video on the shaker pint showing the true advantages of it. And I kind of wanted to do the same with these. They're so simplistic. They're so under-designed, so unstylized is the better word. Yet they do what they were designed to do perfectly. They enhance the drinking experience of the Kölsch, of the Altbier, and they do it in a similar yet unique way. Respectively, they both fit their beer styles perfectly. Anyways, thank you for watching, and thanks for listening to me talk about beer glass sticks or beer glass poles. I really hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something about these unique glassware despite their simplistic design. And I hope you look at them in a new light and give them a try and try experimenting with them, because they're fun. Remember, there's a story in every bottle, and that life is beautiful. Cheers.